All right, so we're back with another one of the Inside Thought Leader Roundtable on the topics that we're going to see at Securing New Ground. It's coming up on October 21st and 22nd. I want to thank everybody who has joined us. We've got Rob, Tim, Sarah, Janet, and John. We've got a decent group, and actually, I think what this represents is a topic that I do believe is going to be one of the more interesting. Not saying the other ones aren't, but when you think about sort of the topic, it's how the pandemic is changing commercial architecture and access control. And it's about the physical spaces and the impacts that the pandemic is going to have. And I believe we're going to start to see a good amount of those. But Unidum's going to be there, Security by Design, and Allegion's going to be on the panel talking about it. So what I thought I'd do is have you all, as the thought leaders of the industry, all different aspects of the industry itself, you're seeing this. So how do you think it's going to impact and change the commercial architecture and access? So if I was going to start, let's go, Sarah, you go first.
I have a lot of thoughts to this one, but of course, I think it's going to be extremely. We're gonna find a lot more seamless integration amongst all the different technologies to make the workflow and the ease of access really simple, and the least germ transfer that we can provide in regards to making our people feel safe and comfortable to come back to work and to feel, clean at work, right? And not worry about getting COVID from their office spaces, right? So we're going to see a lot more technology pop up, and I think a lot more touchless innovation.
Absolutely, I agree. Rob, why don't you go?
Great. I think we're going to see some significant advancements as it relates to architects designing facilities. We began to see some of that with educational facilities where they were dealing with a hardcore security concern. But as we move into the commercial space, it's almost like we're going to move into a man trap type scenario where we have that in corrections, where you enter the facility with a touchless look and feel, not only from access control, but also using automatic openers and things from a multitude of manufacturers. We certainly saw that as it related to compliance with the ADA, and we have manufacturers that have delivered that, but I think that falls a little bit short. I think there's even better options to be delivered for those automatics, as well as how are we designing looks and feels for a visitor? Because I think we're going to move beyond a commercial building where you walk in as a visitor and you're there talking with a physical person, whether it be a receptionist, greeter, whatever that is. It's going to change that interaction, and you're going to interact more with that person you're there to visit versus a physical person that's staffed to be there to be the greeter of that organization.
Well said. Let's go, Janet, you're up.
Yeah, so what really is going to be interesting is we've had a lot of legislation against facial recognition. And now we're seeing this technology more and more being used as facial recognition as a credential. So this is now changing the landscape as to how people are accepting facial recognition as a possible access control solution. So instead of it now coming up against walls time and time again, as far as the legalities on how people are using it, if people were to switch the conversation as to this is the way it's being used as access control, facial recognition, not because we're looking for somebody, it's because we're actually using it for our employees. Now we're talking about a complete adaptation to a technology that was so taboo that might make it more mainstream and more acceptable.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And Tim, you're up.
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy topic to think about, right? I mean, security people, sometimes we have health services attached to us, but like, what about sickness as a weapon, right? So like people used to show up to the office and then not feel well during the day, and so they would go home. Like, well, what do you do now? Are your corridors wide enough so that people can walk and do their thing and not be close enough to people? What happens if you have somebody calls in a sickness threat? Like, hey, I have 3 people there that have a virus. There's a lot of really interesting things that we're going to have to start thinking about, more like negative pressure spaces. It's just interesting to see where this will go as we learn lessons and see how this all plays out.
Yeah, it's totally different on the biological warfare type ideas. So yeah, I didn't think about that. John, what about you?
So I think the pandemic in and of itself has created an opportunity for the security industry to showcase itself and kind of the full range of capabilities that it's had. Specifically, looking at working as a consultant who specifies and designs and works in the commercial real estate space. I think kind of collectively what you all said to kind of surmise it, it's going to push a lot of those, we'll call them trade show floor features into specifications. So the integration with the HVAC system so that I can throttle the air intake for cleanliness based on the amount of people who are coming in and going out or who are occupying a space to happen seamlessly through my access control system is not everywhere. Done today and is being done today and should be specified and will become specified in security construction design specs. And so now we're going to see, I think, API integration design coming in specifications versus just like, hey, did you know this? We can do this. So things that now are like destination dispatch. You see that specified today. 5 years ago, you had to really rationalize with someone why that was a benefit. And so that's where I see this going collectively. I also, to go back to what Rob said, I see a virtualization of the lobby. I mean, that your visitor interaction and experience will start the day you're registered to come to someplace, like going to a doctor's office. Right? When I go to the dentist, I log in online in my portal, I register, I get an email, I get some reminders, and then the day of I get another email saying see you at 8 a.m. and then I show up and there's not a lot of interaction anymore. I get my bills seamlessly. So all that is going to push into our space and it's capable today. This is going to make it mandatory and make it written in specifications if our A&E community has the capability to grab it, and the end users will demand it. So, I see this all being good stuff too, and there's a lot of excitement around it.
I agree, and you kind of took mine, John.
Hi there.
I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. No, but what I was going to say was what I find interesting is a lot of times, especially from an access control standpoint, if we look at that, we talk heavily about sort of like at the door and inside, but not a lot about at the door and outside. And like, how do we take it? So there's like, if we're all being honest, in the access control industry, it has not cared about the end user very much. It's about the administrator and it's about the integrator, and that's okay too. But this new stakeholder of the person, and what is the interaction as they get into, let's say, from their car entering in, as they walk up to the facility. I think a great example of it is if you look at any of the Amazon Go stores. Has anyone been to those? Mm-hmm. They're like, this is the best frictionless thing you've ever seen, except for the access control part of the entire experience. Like, you get in there, you can pull off anything you want off the shelf, but when you get to the front entry, you have to take out your phone, you have to scan in, you have to go. It tells me that there's a lack of something there when it comes to the access control, about being able to have a person show up, not know who they are, they represent themselves to the building, and the building knows how to respond to them, versus me having to physically give them something so they can be represented when they show up. I believe that the dynamic shifts, because I don't, well, some of you are in the executive protection side, but like figuring out the unknown and making them known, I have to believe is somewhat of what you do on that case, right? Or as best as you can. And I believe our buildings are going to start to get smart enough. And when they do, how does that change the way you interact? Because you're going to have to say hello to that person before they walk up to the space. And so now your lobby actually extends out into the parking lot of people. So I find that very exciting. And then at that point, you probably don't need as big of a lobby, or maybe you do, I don't know. But I got to believe it shrinks spaces, and I don't know, makes them more fun.
To your point,
I think there's a concept of so if you, like, CEPTED is a well-known architectural concept of crime prevention through environmental design. So think about pandemic prevention or healthy building by design, where and so that's a lot of people, like right after COVID really started to take hold in March, we're talking about redesigning the lobbies to have health and safety in mind. So queue spaces, but they were always talking about kind of the inverse of your thought, making the lobbies bigger so that the queues could be longer. And then, my response to that is like, no, get rid of the lobby. And the lobby should start at their car. Like you said, it should start when I'm driving on site and I first can like be represented as a thing, as a human, as a car, as whatever. That triggers my hello. And if I have a mobile phone, if I have a license plate, like all of those are my face. Like, Janet said, there's a lot of complexities around the face right now. And Sarah will tell you all her thoughts on that too. I think, there's a, but there's a way to do it. And I think the half of it is like not being afraid to kind of play on the edges and give it a shot to see how far you can push the envelope, because then you're squeezing down, cost per square foot. If I can make the lobby 200 feet instead of 2,000, that's better for the property manager and the owner, et cetera.
I think that we're also going to see a big shift with the technology, like what used to require human interaction to get things done. A lot of those nuances I think are going to get replaced with technology and AI and all the ways that we can automate, that edge type of experience for the end users and the visitors. We're already seeing it today. And to Janet's point, facial recognition is a key component to that. But you mentioned license plate, John. Why can't our ventilation begin, or like, why can't the air start flowing once that CEO drives into his parking spot, right?
Because it's hard, Sarah.
There, right?
Because it's hard.
Is it hard? Well, I mean,
I know.
we've been designing smart buildings for years now. That's what I used to do at my old job, So it exists. It's going to be more of a necessity than a nice to have, is how I see it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different, we have to definitely keep up with the requirements and the compliances that are out there that are being, recommended, or whatever the CDC or the Department of Health or states are mandating. Like right now, it's not just access control, it's how you access the building. You must wear a mask. You can't have a temperature. You have to meet all these requirements before entering. That's all part of how this landscape is going to take a look at. So the dealers and the integrators out there that are installing and working with the end users on this, and the property management companies, they have to deal with how many vendors are they going to work with? You know what I mean? What technology are they going to use? So they're definitely going to go to the manufacturers that can offer checkbox on all of these requirements in order for them to do one install that's clean, instead of saying, oh my gosh, I need a thermal camera. Okay, that's going to be from this company. Oh my gosh, I need this. I need visitor management system that you can actually deploy from somebody's car. To Sarah's point, the check-in process is going to start at home. And to me, when companies basically say, you need to populate this before coming in, are we doing the Boy Scout, type here, that we're all going to tell the truth and be like, yeah, are we just going to go straight down the line and say, of course I don't have any of these symptoms, and go right into the building? It's just, and then the reporting of this all has to be in compliance. You have to also understand there's a lot of companies out there that's going to come out with new technology, but the reporting process is definitely going to be key. What does that look like? If the state official comes into a nursing home or a 55 plus facility, a care facility, and says, I need to see a log of who came in and the temperature checks and everything else. Do you have that? Do you have that? So I don't envy the dealer integrator on this, because they're faced with having to allocate not just access control, but everything that goes with all the requirements nowadays.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate the insight. We could talk about this for hours, I'm sure. It's a heavy topic. I mean, frankly, it's a large topic of what's going on in the industry. So it should be exciting. There's some good speakers that are going to be on the panel to provide their insight. But first, I appreciate this panel and this team sharing their thoughts on what the impact of the pandemic is going to have on just commercial buildings itself and the rest. So thank you very much. Securing the Ground is October 21st and 22nd. So sign up for it and there'll be more insights there. Thank you.